Hello everyone, welcome to Mind Podcast Buddhism. Today we will talk about the topic, Buddha's teachings on the impermanence of the world. Impermanence is a profound truth that affects every aspect of our lives. By understanding and applying this teaching, we can let go of attachments, embrace the present moment, and live with a clearer, more compassionate heart. Impermanence teaches us not to cling to the transient, but to find the enduring truth within. This principle not only guides us to live more meaningfully, but also helps us reconnect with our true nature, our Buddha nature, which remains untouched by the ceaseless changes around us. Let's delve into this essential teaching and explore how it can transform our understanding and approach to life. Impermanence is a truth. Firstly, when we talk about impermanence, it is a truth. Whether Buddha is present in the world or not, the world remains impermanent, always changing and never standing still. Understanding this helps us live more freely and with less attachment. Although Buddhists have heard and understood that the world is impermanent, do we always remember it? We hear about impermanence, but when we encounter impermanent situations, we still feel sad and suffer. Therefore, today's topic aims to help Buddhists deeply understand this principle, bringing Buddhist teachings into our ever-changing worldly life. The ancients had a saying, "The sea can turn into mulberry fields," indicating that the vast sea can transform into fields, and vice versa. Indeed, nowadays, some places have filled in the sea to create land. During a visit to the Netherlands, the monks saw that people also filled in the sea to create residential areas. Thus, it is evident that the sea can turn into mulberry fields. Conversely, mulberry fields can become the sea. Therefore, the world is never stationary, but people always want to hold on to it as if it were unchanging, and that is why we suffer. For example, everyone born will grow old and die. This is the natural law. Everything in this world undergoes such transformation. We may love someone and want to see them forever, not wanting to part or lose them, so when we do lose them, we suffer. As Buddhists, we understand that the law of impermanence governs everything. As the saying goes, you cannot step into the same river twice, because once you step in and then out, the water that flows next is different. In daily life, when we see beautiful scenes, we take photos to keep them, but can we really keep them? We see a beautiful scene and want to preserve it for a long time, but it is impossible because the world is always changing. In the past, when King Tronyantong became a monk, he founded the Truk Lam Zen school and was known as the first patriarch of Truk Lam. In his verse, Ascending the Baodai Mountain, he wrote, "All things in this world are like flowing water. 100 years the heart speaks to the heart." Everything in this world is like water flowing. This stream pushes the next stream, constantly moving forward. Life is the same, continuously moving on. 100 years the heart speaks to the heart, meaning that one's heart always reminds oneself that worldly matters are ever-changing. Understanding this truth reduces suffering and lightens our burdens. Living in accordance with conditions. Understanding the impermanent nature of the world helps Buddhists live according to conditions. By doing so, they do not cling, which greatly reduces suffering. People suffer because they try to hold on to what has passed, but holding on is impossible and causes suffering. If someone lives clinging to the past, they forget the present. Older people often reminisce about their glorious past and feel sad, forgetting about their current life. Those who know how to live according to conditions have a smoother, fresher, and more open life. In ancient times, in the highlands of eastern Tibet, there was an old man who lost his wife early and lived with his only son in a stone tent. The old man spent his days turning the prayer wheel and reciting the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, while his son loved his only horse. One day, the horse ran away and could not be found. The neighbors felt sorry for the old man because he only had his son and the horse to help him. They helped him search for the horse, but to no avail. They lamented his misfortune. However, the old man, understanding the Dharma, remained calm and said, "My dear friends, don't lament. Whatever comes and goes, I silently thank it. Just wait and see." A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it a wild horse. The neighbors came to share in his joy. Previously, they had shared in his sorrow, and now they were sharing in his happiness for having another horse. But the old man continued his daily routine of turning the prayer wheel and said, I also sincerely thank this event, but who knows? Just wait and see. When he lost the horse, he did not hurry to grieve. When he gained the horse, he did not hurry to rejoice. Knowing how to live according to conditions, he reduced his suffering. A few weeks later, the son, excited about having another horse, climbed on it. The wild horse, not yet tamed, bucked wildly, causing the son to fall and break his leg. The neighbors came again to offer their condolences. We thought it was good luck, but now it has caused your son to break his leg. He is your only son, and now you have to take care of him. The old man remained calm, saying, I thank the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. After all, my son is still with me. The old man, a lay practitioner who understood the impermanent nature of life, did not feel sad. If we were in his situation, we would probably feel very sad. But he calmly thanked the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara because his son was still with him. If we see things clearly, everything will change. Not long after, invaders attacked the country, and the king decreed that all young men must go to the front lines to fight. All the young men in the village joined the army, but the old man's son was exempt due to his broken leg. The neighbors came again to share in his joy. The old man composed a verse for his son, which also serves as a lesson for us. The wheel of life spins rapidly, up and down like the water wheel. This body has taken countless forms, endlessly revolving. This body has taken thousands of forms. Each form is destroyed and then reformed like wet clay shaped on the potter's wheel. Life keeps spinning like a water wheel, continuously revolving. This body has existed here countless times, endlessly revolving in the cycle of birth and death. It has taken thousands of forms, each destroyed and reformed, like wet clay shaped on the potter's wheel. The low will rise high, the high will fall low. One day, just wait, the darkness will clear, the wealthy will lose their riches, all forms will change. Life is impermanent, never standing still. Low becomes high, high becomes low, darkness becomes light, and the wealthy can lose their fortunes. Riches can be lost to accidents, fires, floods, etc., meaning that all forms will change. In the endless dance of duality. This is the game of relativity that he calls duality. My child, if you are a special child, people will discover that you belong to a reincarnated lineage and bring you to the monastery with the lamas. If you are wise and articulate, people will put you in office work and tie you behind a desk. Each horse gives you a pile of work. Each wealth ends in contention. Each horse gives you a pile of work, meaning you have to take care of it, feed it, etc. Wealth always ends in contention. Who knows what karma will bring tomorrow? Today you sow, one life it will ripen, reaping fully, that is certain. So be kind to everything, mindless and non-judgmental. Do not covet evil things. All gains and losses, successes and failures are just illusions. Tomorrow, who knows what will come? Today what you sow will ripen in a future life, and you will reap that fruit. Sow good seeds today, and you will reap good fruits. Sow bad seeds and you will reap bad fruits. The timing is uncertain, but the reaping is certain. So, he advises us to be kind to everything. If you want to enjoy sweet fruits, plant sweet seeds, not sour ones. All gains and losses, successes and failures are just illusions, not worth worrying about. Do not hope or fear, my child. Do not seek, and thus you will not be disappointed. If you do not seek, you will not be disappointed. Disappointment comes from excessive seeking. The more you seek, the more you are disappointed. Seek less, be less disappointed. Accept all, whether it comes or goes, and live according to the vastness of heaven. Be truly simple, without worry, and live according to the Buddha nature within you, resting in the joy of your true nature. You can shoot as many arrows as you want into the sky, but they will all fall back to the ground. No matter how many arrows you shoot into the sky, they will all fall back. He advises us to accept everything, whether it comes or goes, with equanimity. Live according to the law of cause and effect. Knowing that everything happens according to cause and effect, accept it as it comes and goes. Live simply, without worry, in accordance with the Buddha nature within you, resting in the joy of your true nature. Buddhists understand that the world is impermanent and always changing, so they live according to conditions, aligned with their Buddha nature, which is their awakened and clear mind. This reduces suffering. Clearly, life is impermanent, always changing, and everything in this world is relative, never completely perfect. However, people always want everything to be perfect and complete, and when they do not get it, they suffer. Understanding this, we know to live according to conditions, reducing suffering. Wanting everything to be perfect will lead to suffering when it does not happen. For example, two close friends might drift apart over time. When they meet again and find that the friendship has changed, one might feel betrayed and sad. This happens because one expects the friendship to remain unchanged, leading to suffering. But this is the law of relativity in the world. People's minds are always changing, living in ignorance and change. When we see it change, we should understand it as natural. Even our minds are impermanent. When we first start practicing, we may be very enthusiastic, but after 5 or 7 years, our enthusiasm may wane. This is due to the impermanence of the mind. Understanding this, we know to follow the law of cause and effect and live with our clear and awakened mind, our innate Buddha nature. That is what truly does not change. Living with wisdom and adapting to conditions, even while living in the world, allows us to find joy in the Dharma. For instance, there was an old man who did not live in a monastery but applied the Dharma in his worldly life. So he was always happy, whether gaining or losing. In the poem Living Joyfully in the World by King Tran Nhan Tong, live joyfully in the world, adapting to conditions. Living in the world, but knowing and finding joy in the Dharma prevents suffering. There is a story about an old woman, the mother of a Tibetan teacher. She did not understand much of the teachings but applied what she knew to help those around her live well. One day, a neighbor whose husband had just died came to the Lama's house seeking comfort. But the Lama was away and she met the mother. The old woman comforted her. You feel sad, which is understandable, but it is not necessary because everything that is born must disintegrate and return to its origin. No one can avoid death. Everything is impermanent. Understanding this is a blessing. She meant that because everything is impermanent, having been born, it must die. No one can avoid this. Wanting it not to die will only cause suffering. Knowing this, we should adapt to conditions. The grieving woman was still sad, so the old woman continued to comfort her. Go ahead and cry, pull your hair out if you want. But then you must think and reduce your sorrow. Don't forget that your sorrow is also impermanent, like clouds and wind. It will lessen, just like everything else in this world. I am an old woman who has experienced loss and sorrow and seen many loved ones come and go, so my advice to you is, don't hold anything in your heart. The old woman advised that although it was natural to feel sad, one must also think to reduce the sadness. She said the sorrow in your heart is also impermanent. No matter how much you grieve, after a few months or a year, it will lessen. Has anyone grieved for their entire life? Emotions are impermanent. If we hold on to them, they cause suffering. So she advised, don't hold anything in your heart. To make life lighter, holding on to things causes suffering. If we understand and apply this, our life will have much less suffering. There is a meaningful story in Zen. Two brothers were walking on a path after a rain, and the path was muddy. They had to cross a shallow stream. At that moment, a young woman in a beautiful kimono needed to cross the stream. The older brother, with a compassionate heart, said, "Young lady, come here, I will carry you across." He carried her across the stream, placed her on the other side, and continued walking back to the temple. The younger brother felt uncomfortable seeing this. On the way back, he was unhappy, and the atmosphere was tense. Nearing the temple, unable to bear it anymore, he said, "Today, you acted inappropriately." The older brother asked, "What do you mean by that?" The younger brother replied, "As monks, we are not supposed to touch women, yet you carried that young woman across the stream." The older brother said, "I put her down at the stream, but you are still carrying her in your mind." This is a Zen story, where the older brother acted without attachment, while the younger brother held on to it and felt unhappy. Although it is a humorous story, it is full of wisdom, reminding us to practice letting go and keeping the mind empty and unattached. For example, when a Buddhist goes to the market or factory and someone says something hurtful, they might feel sad for a moment. No one is a saint here, so feeling sad for a while is normal, but we should leave it there and move on. Feeling sad for a moment in the market or factory but letting it go when we return home makes life lighter. If not, we carry it home, to the bedroom, and even to bed, unable to sleep, which causes suffering. Understanding this principle, we can live very lightly. Understanding that everything is impermanent and living according to conditions is a great medicine for worldly suffering. Buddhists learning the Dharma is like patients taking medicine. Buddha's teachings are like medicine. For patients to recover, they must take the medicine. Reading about the medicine's formula does not cure the illness. No matter how much we study the Dharma, hearing about impermanence until our ears are full, if we still cling to impermanence when it comes, we suffer. Thus, studying Buddhism means learning to take the medicine, absorbing and applying the teachings for practical benefits. Valuing time, understanding the meaning and application of the Buddha's teachings on impermanence in our lives shows that learning about impermanence is not to make us pessimistic or uninterested in life. Many people misunderstand and doubt this after learning the Dharma. In the past, some people asked, if Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent, doesn't that make people lose interest in life? Knowing that everything is impermanent doesn't mean we should stop doing things and waste our time. This kind of thinking leads to pessimism and weakness, which is a misunderstanding. The Buddha taught that impermanence means that once things pass, we cannot bring them back. Therefore, the present time is very precious and we must cherish it. We should not waste our time but live meaningfully, appreciating the present. Saying everything is impermanent and doing nothing is a waste of life. The good conditions we have now are not easy to encounter a second time. Thus, we must cherish and develop them without hesitation. Today, thanks to the good conditions of being near a temple and learning the Dharma, we should develop our good roots so that in future lives they will multiply. What if we are born into other forms of existence? Understanding the meaning of impermanence means not letting these good conditions pass us by, as we might not find them again later. Clearly, understanding this makes life more positive, not negative. In an ancient Indian tale, a man bought a piece of land from his neighbor. It happened to be on the last day of the Golden Age, transitioning into the Dark Age. After buying the land, he dug up a pot of gold. Being honest, he returned it to the former owner, saying, "I bought your land, not the gold, so I'm returning the gold to you." The other man said, "I'm happy for you. When I sold the land, I sold everything. I didn't know there was gold. This is your good fortune, and you have the right to keep it." They kept pushing the gold back and forth, as it was still the Golden Age. However, the transition to the Dark Age was nearing, so they said, "It's late. Let's deal with it tomorrow." That night, both men reconsidered and felt regretful. The next morning, the buyer said, "I've thought it over. You were right. I bought the land, so the gold under it is mine. I'll keep it." The seller responded, "No, I've also thought it over. You only bought the land, and the gold is mine. I'll keep the gold." They argued and ended up going to court, becoming enemies. This shows the impermanence of human nature. What was beautiful and good yesterday had changed by the next morning. Thus, we see that from our body and mind to the external environment, everything changes. When encountering good times, we must seize the opportunity and act quickly. If we don't, we may change our minds. In the Buddhist time, there is a story about a very poor couple who only had a single piece of cloth to cover themselves. Each day, they took turns going out to beg. One day, the husband met a disciple of the Buddha and developed a desire to make an offering. Despite their poverty, he wanted to offer something and discussed it with his wife, saying, "We must have done something wrong in a previous life to be so poor now. Let's make an offering to create merit for a better future." The wife replied, "We only have this cloth. How will we go begging tomorrow if we offer it?" The husband said, "Making an offering will bring blessings." After much discussion, they decided to offer the cloth. At that time, a monk passed by their house. The husband crawled to the window and offered the cloth with all his sincerity. After offering it, he exclaimed, "I've won! I've won!" He had indeed won. He overcame his poverty and selfishness. The monk, hearing his exclamation, investigated and learned about their situation. He reported it to the Buddha. The Buddha and the monks, along with the king and many lay followers, were moved. The king sent soldiers to bring clothes and gold to the couple. Later, they went to hear the Buddha's teachings and transform their lives for the better. This is immediate karma. When encountering good opportunities, seize them and act quickly. If they had waited until the next day, it would have been difficult to make the offering. This is something we should learn and apply in our lives. We must remember that everything in the world, including our body and mind, is impermanent and constantly changing. Therefore, when we encounter good conditions, we should act immediately, or else negative conditions may lead us astray. In the sutras, it is taught, hasten to do good, restrain your mind from evil. If you are slow to do good, your mind will delight in evil. Dhammapada 1:16. The Buddha teaches us this. If we are slow to do good, evil will creep in, so we must seize the opportunity to do good immediately, reducing the chance of evil arising. Understanding impermanence makes life not negative but very positive, always ready to do good within our capacity. There's a story about the founder of the Pure Land School, Master Shinran. He was a reborn sage with deep Dharma seeds. Due to previous cultivation, he remembered early in life. At 9, he approached Master Honen and asked to become a monk. Master Honen asked, "You are so young, why do you want to become a monk?" Shinran replied, "Although I am young, my parents died early. I don't understand why people must die and why I must be separated from my parents. I wish to understand this truth, so I asked to become a monk." Even at a young age, he had a noble aspiration to become a monk. Master Honen said, "I understand. I will accept you as my disciple, but it is getting late. I will ordain you tomorrow morning." Shinran replied, "Master, you say you will ordain me tomorrow morning, but I cannot guarantee my aspiration to become a monk will last until tomorrow. Moreover, you are old, and you cannot guarantee you will wake up tomorrow to ordain me. So please ordain me now." Master Honen, hearing this, clapped his hands and laughed, very pleased. "You are right, I will ordain you now." Later, Shinran cultivated and became the founder of the Pure Land School. Shinran, due to past cultivation, remembered early in life and understood impermanence. At 9, he could speak like that. Can we speak like that yet? Although young, he had a strong determination to become a monk, fearing he might not maintain it until the next day. He also recognized his master's advanced age, unsure if he would survive until the next day. This is understanding impermanence. Previously, some Tibetan monks would clean and wrap their teapot and cups carefully before going to bed, thinking they might not wake up to use them the next day. Understanding impermanence this deeply, they quickly attained enlightenment. If we could be like them, we would likely attain enlightenment quickly and reduce our afflictions. Whenever someone makes us angry, we should think, why get angry when death is near? I don't even know if I will breathe out again after breathing in. This helps reduce afflictions. Thinking we will live for 70 or 80 years gives us time to hold on to afflictions. Understanding impermanence deeply makes us happy and reduces afflictions significantly. It shows the practical, valuable, and noble nature of the Dharma. Otherwise, when we hear the Dharma is precious, we might not understand why. Understanding it deeply and applying it in life deepens and strengthens our faith. The profound meaning of impermanence. Previously, we discussed the transient aspect of impermanence. If we can skillfully progress further, we will realize the true essence within impermanence. Speaking of impermanence aims to help people realize the truth, to rise above it, and to live authentically, rather than merely seeing impermanence as something transient. This is the deeper meaning of impermanence. The principle of impermanence is not meant to make people pessimistic. Understanding that everything is impermanent helps us avoid delusions and return to our true nature, which we have forgotten. This true nature is Buddha nature, our fundamental mind, and the truth within ourselves. All sentient beings possess Buddha nature, which is untouchable by impermanence. Although sentient beings are subject to impermanence, they do not lose their Buddha nature. Thus, those who cultivate and attain enlightenment can transform sentient beings into Buddhas. Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and all sages were once deluded sentient beings. When they were deluded, they were sentient beings. Upon enlightenment, they transformed into Buddhas. Buddhas arose from sentient beings, as did bodhisattvas, arhats, and other sages. Therefore, within sentient beings lies the potential to transcend their current state. Speaking of impermanence helps us not be mistaken by this illusion and skillfully live in accordance with the truth of enlightenment. Zen Master Mangyak's verse teaches us, "Spring goes, 100 flowers fall. Spring comes, 100 flowers bloom. Before our eyes things pass by. On the head old age arrives. Do not say that when spring has gone, flowers fall completely. Last night a branch of apricot blossomed before the court." This verse reveals the true essence within impermanence. Spring departs and 100 flowers fall. Spring arrives and 100 flowers bloom. Life flows before our eyes like water. Water flows continuously. After a while, we see that old age has arrived with gray hair. The verse reminds us that everything in life, from external circumstances to our own bodies, is subject to the transformations of impermanence. But why mention the departure of spring first? Usually people say arrival first. Spring arrives, flowers bloom. Spring departs, flowers fall. Here, the Master says the opposite. Spring departs, 100 flowers fall. Spring arrives, 100 flowers bloom. This was the Master's teaching verse as he was about to pass away, reminding the community not to be too sad. His body, like everything, comes into existence, and when its conditions are exhausted, departs. Just as spring departs, flowers fall. Yet when the conditions return, flowers bloom again. This illustrates the transient nature of the world. However, within that, do not say that when spring has gone, flowers fall completely, meaning even in the fleeting spring, there remains. Last night, a branch of apricot blossomed before the court. What does this mean? The Master chose his words carefully. He didn't say there was a cluster of apricot blossoms, but a branch. A cluster of blossoms will fall again, but a branch remains, and when spring comes, it will bloom once more. Flowers may fall and wither, but the branch remains. This clarifies that while life is impermanent and the body perishes, the true essence remains. Similarly, the Master may be gone physically, but is not truly lost. He will appear again when conditions are right, just like the apricot branch that blooms again in spring. This means that within impermanence lies the true essence. Therefore, Buddha speaks of impermanence to lead people back to their true nature. Understanding this reveals the profound meaning of impermanence, beyond just its transient nature. Through this, we see the deep and immeasurable Dharma. In the Mahayana Sutras, this body is called the illusory body, a transient, falsely existent body. But there is also the Dharma body, which is not subject to birth and death. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha speaks of his lifespan, stating that it has been countless kalpas since he attained Buddhahood, far longer than can be measured. He illustrates this by saying, if we ground the great Trichiliacosm, a vast number of worlds, into dust, and after passing 100,000 worlds, drop one grain of dust and continue until all grains are dropped, the number of worlds traversed, with and without a dust drop, would be incalculable. From that time until now, the Buddha has been even longer in existence. Thus, what is the Buddha's true lifespan? Usually we think the Buddha lived 80 years and then entered nirvana. But if we understand the Buddha's words, he has never truly entered nirvana in the sense of cessation. Because of delusion, we see the Buddha entering nirvana. If we are enlightened, we see the Buddha ever present. The Buddha's true nature has always been present, never entering nirvana. Each person has Buddha nature, but the Buddha within us has entered nirvana countless times. Now we must bring the Buddha to life again. By attaining enlightenment, we see the Buddha arise. Seeing the Buddha arise surpasses countless kalpas in nirvana. We then understand the truth that the cycle of birth and death is like a dream. We may think the Buddha entered nirvana, but he is still with us. Understanding this profound principle is enough for a lifetime of practice. This could take many lifetimes to fully grasp, but many of us have become accustomed to hearing about impermanence and may grow tired of it, seeking more profound teachings. If we truly understand the deep meaning of impermanence and apply it in our practice, we can make great progress, potentially attaining Buddhahood. It's not a trivial matter. Conclusion: understanding that the world is impermanent helps us let go of attachments, cultivate Bodhi mind, and avoid falling into delusion. It encourages us to live positively and seize golden opportunities for progress. Thus, everything in the world is impermanent, with nothing solid or lasting. Seeing this helps us live more open-heartedly and closer to each other. Knowing life is impermanent, we reduce the suffering we cause each other. Living together in this transient world We should bring joy rather than sorrow to each other, making life more joyful and remaining calm amidst the impermanence. Like the old woman advising another, we should remember that all is impermanent, including our sorrowful mind. Whenever we feel sad, we should recall that our mind is also impermanent and never static. Skillfully applying this understanding helps us continually progress on the path of Dharma, reducing suffering, which is like taking medicine. Contemplating impermanence deeply can lead to enlightenment. In ancient times, some attained arhatship through contemplating impermanence, realizing the selflessness of the body, eliminating ego, and overcoming delusion. There was a monk who one morning saw a pond full of blooming lotuses. By noon, a group of girls had come to pick the lotuses, carelessly damaging the remaining flowers and leaves. By afternoon, the once beautiful pond looked desolate. The monk, observing this, deeply contemplated the impermanent nature of all things and attained arhatship. Thus, practitioners should skillfully contemplate impermanence and apply it in their lives, not merely understanding it superficially. From what has been discussed, you might understand the concept of impermanence, but is this understanding truly yours or still just the teacher's understanding? You need to make it your own. To conclude this teaching, remember what a Tibetan master said. Have you ever truly understood and realized the principle of impermanence? Have you integrated it into every thought, every breath, and every action so that your life is transformed by it? This means understanding and realizing impermanence in every breath, every step, and every word, thereby transforming your life. Can you do this? Ask yourself these two questions, and if you can answer them, you truly understand impermanence. 1. Do I remember that I am always dying, and so is everyone and everything else? Therefore, do I treat all sentient beings with compassion at all times? Sitting here, do you remember that you are gradually dying? Remembering that you are dying, and so is everyone else, fosters compassion and empathy, understanding that we share the same fate. Can you answer this question? 2. Has my understanding of death and impermanence become so sharp and urgent that I am dedicating every remaining moment of my life to the pursuit of enlightenment? If you can answer yes to these two questions, you truly understand impermanence. Has anyone here answered these questions yet? If not, what should you do? Clearly, understanding impermanence requires lifelong learning. Understanding this now, even while sitting here, can transform your life significantly, reducing afflictions. Thus, this teaching is like medicine for everyone. Now skillfully take this medicine.